Fantasy and Some Flights, exploring the realms of beer, board games, books, and bourbon.
Welcome to another fireside episode of Fantasy and Some Flights. I'm Nelson.
I'm Dalton.
And today, hey, we're finally back. Okay, so we had a little bit of a break. We took summer vacation from the podcast, which was kind of combined with a lot of life events and then COVID, which I am just now getting over again.
So glad.
Yep. But we're back. We're talking about Fireside. We got so much stuff to cover.
I know.
But before we dive in, how are you doing, Mr. Dalton?
I'm doing really well. You know, it's been, like you said, it's been a little while. There was a lot of summers just get busy, and this happened last year. You know, I moved last year, and this year there was just a lot of weddings. Summer is wedding season, and we're kind of at that age where everybody seems to be getting married. So that was a big part of it. I talked about like, do we want to do like a fireside or like a topic episode? And it's like, we cannot afford to do a topic episode. Like,
right.
It has been too long. There is far too much to cover.
There's way too much to cover. We had GenCon in that break, and so that's covering a lot of what I'm talking about tonight.
Yeah. Things have been coming out.
I started reading again. It's weird. Oh my gosh.
I took a break from Wheel of Time for a little while, so I read like other books. I have like several books that are just in the
You can do that?
Yeah, you can do that.
Does Brandon know?
There's literally no rules against it.
Really? Okay. Huh. Weird. Huh.
Yeah.
But I did read a book. I need to write that in my notes so I don't forget it, because I already forgot it until just now. So, But before we dive into all of the exciting content that we have been consuming over the last month or so, what's on your flight?
On my flight tonight, I have a disappointment.
And
actually,
I'm on your flight?
That's a whole flight of disappointments. Titled "My Sex Life."
Oh, geez. Okay.
Oh man. And we're back. Anyways,
fix it in post.
Yeah, fix it in post. To my fiance, I love you. That was not a joke about you. Anyways, we have tonight IW Harper. So this is a brand that has, and so this is why I say it's a disappointment. I'm just going to bring it up front because it's a disappointment because of expectation, not because it's actually a bad whiskey. I would start out just off the bat. I would probably call this a 2 cheers. Okay. And that's largely based on price point, but to contextualize where we're at. So IW Harper is a very successful 15-year bourbon, right? So if you want to go out and buy like a 130-year bottle that you know everybody is like raving about, IW Harper 15-year, it's really pretty, right? I have not tasted it, but I've heard really good things. Side by side, they released a like no age statement bottling.
So 2?
This one they actually say that it's straight, so it's most likely 4, like exactly.
Oh, 4. Okay.
4 year, because it is a straight bourbon, but they don't have an age statement, so it's probably a 4 year. And so I think coming into it, you have these kind of high expectations meeting against this like really well-priced, really excellent 15-year that everyone is like crazy about against this no age statement, like, hey, we're just going to try and get something onto the market kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And tasting it, I think tasting blind, I would maybe prefer like Wild Turkey 101, which I actually do like. That's not like a total like just this swill. Like I liked Wild Turkey 101 at its price point. I would maybe prefer it to this though. And this I think I paid like $39 for.
Okay.
And that's like way too much.
Gotcha.
I think it's kind of maybe trying to ride the brand a little bit. It also says they have not released like where this whiskey comes from. Like it says it's bottled at their distillery, which makes me think like maybe they actually bought it and just like maybe they did a little bit of aging and this is speculation on my part. They like did maybe a little bit of aging, or maybe they even just mixed it and rebottled it there. But it's somebody else's whiskey. Again, not having tasted like their 15-year, I have no idea if it tastes similar or not. But overall, I think I came in with like, this will be exciting to try, and was maybe just like a little bit let down.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, again, not knowing all of that, I think I would come in and put it at a 2 cheers because I would feel it was maybe a little bit overpriced at like $39.
Gotcha.
And could think like, I've maybe had some better things. But it's very straightforward as a bourbon. It has a very straightforward palate and nose. There's like, if there was a forward flavor outside of just like standard bourbon flavors, it might be like maybe like an apricot or like maybe a slight like mintiness in like the finish.
Okay.
It doesn't like stick around too much. It's bottled at 82 proof, so it doesn't have like a whole lot of complexity. It doesn't have a whole lot of aggression. It doesn't have a whole long finish because it's just kind of a little weak.
Seems very bland.
Yeah, and it's like not bland in like a tasteless way because it's still a whiskey, so it's still like like you taste it.
Yeah.
But it's like if this was somebody's first bourbon ever, you could kind of be like, yeah, this is kind of what bourbon tastes like.
Okay.
I like an 82 proof that's not gonna like floor them.
But you have to spend $40 for it.
Yeah, but you have to spend $40 for it, and like we're getting close to like Michter price in that range, and it's like
Right. Yeah,
that.
I think I paid $42 for that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna buy Michter. That's way better at this price point.
Yeah.
So, we find Elijah Craig. I don't, but in Indiana, we find Elijah Craig around, more like 30s, like low 30s, stuff like that. And I probably prefer that. And so
yeah.
So I think that's why it was a miss. I think they're trying to rely on their branding, and I don't know. It just didn't really come together for me. So. Like I said, a bit of a disappointment, but at least it's not bad to drink, right? It's not like I'm trying to get through it. Like I do enjoy every pour. It's like this is fine. I just wish I didn't pay so much for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it sucks that you paid so much, but I'm glad you're not choking it down. I'm glad it doesn't have to, revert to being in a mixed drink.
That's right.
Type whiskey. So at least you have that, but now you know not to pick it up again. So
yeah. Now you know to try something different. So and that happens. That's part of the process, right?
Yeah,
that's why you have friends like me that buy bottles. So that
exactly. Yeah. And I just listen to this podcast, and then I know what to buy.
Exactly. Oh. What about you? Besides like tea, what are you drinking?
I've been drinking a lot of tea because that helps me cough. We will probably heavily editing out coughs in this episode. But I am drinking Carlsberg. So this is a Danish-style Pilsner. And this I picked up because I have a shirt because my wife, when she
I'm so glad you have a shirt.
I have a shirt. One whole shirt. I did it, guys. I have a Carlsberg shirt. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I don't. I don't.
We're back to zero shirts.
We're back to zero shirts. I have a Carlsberg bottle opener. I have a different shirt, but a Carlsberg bottle opener. And my wife was gonna try and bring me back some when she visited Danish.
When she visited Danish, the country of Danish,
the country of Danish. But she was not able to through like customs and everything, and so she brought back this, and I've always wanted to try it, and so I was able to pick it up at a local store here, and I love their branding or their logo. It's their Carlsberg, probably the best beer in the world. And I love it. Like it's incredible. But
based on our fairly limited testing.
Yeah, right. But just from like looking at it and doing a little bit of research and hearing what my wife has to say, this feels very much like the beer that is in all of the bars there and just is very common. And I wish that was the case here because I am really enjoying this. It's very crisp. It's very light. It does not taste like a mass market beer whatsoever. I actually would order this.
Oh, nice.
And not just from a novelty sake. I would actually probably buy this because this is really refreshing. It's excellent now here in the summer. It's a very lighthearted beer. It pairs very well with the hot tea, and so it's a 3 cheers for me, 4 cheers if you're drinking with tea. And I was actually very impressed. So I probably will try and go find maybe more of these because it feels like a very good one for kind of like a light drink on a hot summer day.
Very cool. Yeah, I was a little concerned when on the camera I saw a green bottle. I was like, oh man, let's see. I've not really had very many good beers out of a green bottle.
Rolling Rock, you take that back, sir.
The luck of the Irish is with you. Yeah.
Is it going to win awards at a craft beer festival? No, but it is very good for what it is.
Cool.
So
yeah,
very happy with it. Yeah.
If you remember in the beer episode where you kind of led us through a tasting, I had a Pilsner I was very surprised by because we have this it's ingrained in you in the craft scene in America where it's we have Pilsners but they're bad.
The thrills for the pills.
Got the thrills for the pills, and I don't know, just because we all know that that's what all of the big domestic brands, quote unquote, are. And so we just equivalate Pilsner with cheap and bad. And that episode really showed me like, okay, that's not true. They're just hard to do well, maybe. And
Yeah.
but they're also cheap to make, and so they like.
I think that's it. I think it's really cheap to do mediocre or poorly.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy to mass market them.
Yeah.
And so that's why you see all of the I don't even know what to call them, mass market beers or whatever,
the domestics.
The domestics. Yeah.
It doesn't help when you like brew with rice instead of hops.
What's cheaper? Can we do cardboard? Can we try cardboard? Let's try cardboard.
I'm sure they did.
Oh, but yeah, so that's what's on my flight.
Sweet.
And enjoying that until I run out of it and I inevitably switch to something else.
Nice.
We've been talking for a while.
I know. I actually I poured myself a pretty heavy pour, and I got like maybe, I don't know, half a finger left, half a pinky, we'll call it.
Nice.
In a pretty
Alrighty,
wide
okay, so we have so much to talk about, so I do not want to delay anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But do we want to flip a coin? Do you want to start us out? You start us out. What's going on in the realm of Dalton Lynn?
I'm going to start with something. I'm going to start with the most recent. So chronologically, I'm going to work backwards just because it's like
Okay,
most recent
love
in
it.
my mind. So I have started To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini.
Oh, that's a book. That's not a statement. You're
That's
not
right.
just
I
on
am not-
magic mushrooms. Yeah.
Just lay in the backyard, hold onto the grass, and ride it out, buddy. Yeah.
Okay. So Paolini's a book. So Paolini, Aragon, and the Inheritance Cycle, which we are very familiar with. But that's the only thing that I have heard about or that I've read from Paolini. So
Yeah.
how is the Magic Mushrooms book?
Yeah, the Magic Mushrooms book. So I am. This is a physical copy, and so I am like, I don't know, maybe an eighth. I would say that's an estimation based on how much I remember when I put the bookmark in last night.
Yeah.
And so this is a sci-fi novel. It is, so far, the concept is that, and again, I'm very, very new into the book, and so I'm basing this off the back of the book and like what I've read so far.
Yeah.
But basically, like, humanity is like exploring. They have some sort of ability to explore like nearby star systems.
Okay.
And they are like working on like terraforming projects and that sort of thing. It's following the person who encounters an alien life form.
Ooh,
I don't know
okay.
about the person, but a person who encounters an alien life form. And it seems like humanity has found evidence before, but not like an actual life form. And so it's kind of like following her story. And so far, I have been fairly impressed with the quality of writing.
Good.
Which has been really, really cool, because we've talked about like Aragon, like when you go back on the reread as older, more experienced, more mature readers, you just realize that like he was very young,
Yeah.
and it's
I think
amazing
he put his
that
first. It was like 16, right?
yeah, when he started, he finished when he was like 19 or something stupid,
Yeah.
or maybe he was 21, I forget, but it doesn't really matter. Point is, he was inexperienced and young, and it's amazing that he accomplished what he did at that age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's really cool because I feel like we are maybe not far off in age from him. Like we're 29, and wait, we're 29.
I had a birthday.
I know. I had to think
did
about
the
when your
birthday.
birthday was. Your birthday, it happened. Okay.
Yep.
We are both 20. We're in the last year of our 20s, and I feel like he's not far. He's like a year or two older than us, or something like that. And it's been a little while since he's written like a full novel, and so it's just been really rewarding to see like, okay, like this exposition is like, it's really well structured. Like this is a sci-fi book, so that's like a breach from fantasy, right?
Yeah.
There are differences in how you approach that, and he's showing a lot of he has a very strong intellect, and he has a strong instinct for it, but he's showing like math and science that you have to like show in sci-fi. It's like, okay, he obviously like he's a smart guy, he's got an education, like that's, some of these things are like starting to kind of come forward. And it's like I said, it's been like maybe 10 years since he released Aragon. So
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I kind of you said an eighth into it, correct?
yeah, I'm not very far.
Okay, yeah, not very far into it. Okay, well, yeah, I mean that sounds really cool. I do love sci-fi. I'll have to check it out. Well, I'll wait until your final verdict, but
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Wait till I know if I like it or not. Yeah.
yeah, I have enjoyed Paolini's work, and so I'm intrigued by it,
For sure.
and also like, so I'm not going to jump the gun too much, but I did just read a sci-fi book, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I think I do have like more love for sci-fi than I think I realized. Like, I just really enjoy sci-fi.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that. I've always just thought of myself as like, I love fantasy. Like, fantasy is what I like. But it's like, the more sci-fi, I was like, I think I like this more. Like, so I'll definitely try it out.
Yeah, I think like we both have that fault where we, and maybe it's because like, we haven't played a lot of like Starfinder, but we did play a lot of Pathfinder,
Yeah,
and,
it's in our name.
It's in our name. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just a more familiar genre. And when we think of the books that we read when we were like younger, maybe like Aragon and Lord of the Rings, like a lot of them were big fantasy books, and so it just feels like familiar. But when I look at my like top 5 books, like a large portion of them are sci-fi books, and it's become very prevalent in the books that I recommend and the books that I look out for. So I've looked forward to like reading this book every night. Like I
well, that's good.
Get to bed and like pick up the book and see what's, see what happens next. So.
Well, I'll talk fast then.
So.
Nice. So going on with the Paolini train, did you see that Disney Plus is working on an Aragon TV show?
Yep, I did. I don't know anything about it except for that they're doing it.
Yeah, that's a risky move.
Right.
It's kind of funny because I know that we have said on the podcast before that we don't think that would ever happen just because of how poorly they handled the first one.
I know,
but
it took like a
we
month.
are eating our words. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So we'll see how that goes, but I'm not quite sure when or if it's going to come out.
Yeah. I think it's early enough that that's not guaranteed still.
Yeah.
But we have joked about like, stop remaking movies that did well and start remaking movies that didn't do well.
Yeah. The Disney Plus executives are listening to our podcast.
That's right.
It's really exciting.
What do we want to say?
So I kind of teased the sci-fi book. I read and finished In the Shadow of Deimos, which is the Terraforming Mars book.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's a company that I actually have it right here. I can just look at it. It is Aconite is the company.
Okay.
And so what they do is they write books in what I think actually exclusively in like video game and board game worlds. And so it was really fun to read this because it's kind of at the very like mid-early stage of the terraforming process. And if you've played the game, basically it's a lot of corporations are going through and trying to terraform and bring life to Mars.
Okay.
And in this first book, it follows like an asteroid hits Mars, which happens all the time in the game. And so asteroid hits Mars, but it actually ends up killing somebody. This is like chapter 1 stuff, so I'm not spoiling anything for you. And then it kind of follows that. But it was so fun to read this and then see all of the callbacks that they have to the game, right? One of the major players is Credicore. UMNI is one of the major players, and like they have references to a lot of the different cards. And so like in that sense, it was just a really fun read, but it was also a really interesting book. And so like I thought the plot was really interesting. I enjoyed the story arc. It kind of had like a mystery type feel to it.
Yeah.
And so that was a little fun. It kind of reminded me of when you were talking about the Dresden Files, where it's kind of like the fantasy mystery type.
Yeah.
But this one was kind of a sci-fi because the main character is trying to like uncover what happened and all of this stuff. And so that was fun. They're coming out with another one that I think is releasing in October. And so I pre-ordered that. So I got through the first one. I enjoyed it. So I pre-ordered the next one. So it was a good book. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Turns out, he's like trying to figure out what happened, and turns out there was a bonus if temperature got raised one more step,
Yep.
So
Yep.
players like,
Exactly.
if I pay for this, standard project, I get to place an ocean.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, but I bought it based off of the IP.
Yeah.
Obviously because it has Terraforming Mars on the cover, and stayed for the enjoyment of the actual book. So
That's good. That's really fun to hear. Yeah. I don't know. I think without a recommendation, it's probably not something I would have picked up. Just because Terraforming Mars is huge. It looks like a money grab,
Yeah.
But it's also a weird, it would be a weird money grab to make. Like, books are not that profitable.
Right. Yeah. And this company has done a lot with Arkham Horror. They've done a lot with, Twilight Imperium. So they have books in the Twilight Imperium universe. They've
neat.
done a couple others I can't recall off the top of my head, but it's kind of what they do. They did a BioShock, I think. I think they did a couple of books in the BioShock. So it's such an interesting model, and just it's a fun partnership, at least.
For sure.
So yeah, that was actually a physical book that I read, and I did not listen to it, and so I was really proud about that.
Good job.
As well. I did all of the words by myself.
And the voices. The voices in your head just got, got monologues.
It's great.
They had something to say for once.
What else is going on?
So I think I'm gonna go ahead and take this one.
Oh,
did you watch?
Yes,
you did the first
Yeah,
episode of House of Dragons.
Yeah.
So I watched it last night, and my fiance and I watched it last night, and I'm feeling really hopeful. I really liked it.
The way I've been describing it is I'm afraid of how much I enjoyed it. Because it felt very much like the first episode of Game of Thrones.
Seriously, yeah.
Which was incredible, and I thought I'll say it. I thought this episode was phenomenal. Yeah. I was hooked. There was one kind of thing that I didn't totally like with at the end, which I'm not going to say because it is kind of a spoiler.
Yeah,
but. It was just like a one-line thing. I was like, yeah, that was kind of weird. But like other than that, like I was enthralled.
About, I
think. Yep. So I was enthralled.
Yeah.
I
seriously.
It was incredibly well done.
Yeah, they obviously have the funding because like the dragons looked great.
Yes,
they looked really good.
And King's Landing looked amazing.
It did, yeah.
Right? We saw more city in this first episode than I think all of season 1 through 7 of Game of Thrones combined.
Yeah, they did a great job with it,
It was incredible.
Yeah. Like excepting maybe like the season where like Marjorie Tyrell's just like walking around the city, and you like see a lot of the city like through her eyes or whatever.
Right.
They just for one episode they showed a lot of it, and it looked really good. It looked like familiar. They did a really good job of balancing like familiar enough with also respecting the fact that it's like 200 years or something.
Yeah.
Or 172 or something. They give the number prior to the events of like I think it's prior to like Daenerys Targaryen being born.
Yep.
So it's quite a so like they show like differences, but you're like it's very familiar. The way it's shot, it's bright. Thank God they figured out how fucking lights work. Right?
They did it. Everyone, they did it.
They did it. They turned the lights on in the studio.
Yeah,
Jeez.
They got funding to power the lights.
That's right. Yeah, they got funding to power the lights. Just off the bat, it's like okay, I think there's some characters here I could be invested in. There's some. There's some. Everyone has a little up and down. Like nobody's a perfect good guy, bad guy so far.
Yep. Yeah, I think they have captured that from Game of Thrones, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things that we talk about with Game of Thrones is how there's really no like clear cut, like other than like Ned, right? Like clear cut good guy or good person, and this felt very much like all the characters kind of had that depth that A Song of Ice and Fire provided, and so I am cautiously optimistic. Yeah,
for sure. I would say if there's an area where I'm hesitant or maybe nervous is like maybe the casting. I don't feel off. I mean, but it's the first episode, it's really hard to judge that type of thing. But like right off the cuff, it's like when I think of why Game of Thrones is successful, it's because like every freaking actor was an all-star, they just nailed their parts. And then the writing tanked, but like the actors were really, really solid.
Right.
And so a couple of the actors I'm like looking at, I'm like, oh, this person's good. Like, I like this. Yep. And a couple of them I'm like, we'll see, but like no one out that I was like, this person's going to be terrible or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was told well, because you don't really know what the show's going to be about, honestly, until the episode starts playing. You're like, I know that it's set in the past, but like, what's the conflict? Like, what's going on? They kind of like tee that up, I thought, fairly well. And they like start to show what it's going to be about. And you're like, okay, I can see where this might go. Like this is interesting. We'll see.
Yeah. I really enjoyed seeing kind of like good Targaryens, or like kind of like Targaryens were and kind of are they were kind of the antagonists to Westeros in A Song of Ice and Fire, and then in this series they are very much the protagonist, and they feel almost similar to like the Lannisters, where they kind of have the power they hold the throne, and there are good. They're the royal family. There are good ones. There are bad ones. There are interesting ones. Yeah. And so, like, I'm just really pleased with the depth and seeing that they're not all just, like, crazy, insane people, like, kind of how it's kind of teed up in A Song of Ice and Fire.
For sure.
Or, like, the original series. Because, like, they kind of push that narrative. The characters in Game of Thrones kind of push that narrative because they are the bad people. And so it's really cool to see that. And then also the dragons. The dragons were sick.
Yeah, they looked really good.
Oh, and then there's this is not a spoiler, but there is a scene where you get to see what has been talked about in Game of Thrones with the large dragon skulls. And the sheer size of one of the dragon skulls, and then I thought they did a really good job of they like show him, and basically like the people standing next to it are like the size of like its teeth, pretty much, and then it cuts to like a live dragon where it's, you know, the people are like the size of their head, and you're just like, that thing was huge. Oh my gosh.
Which is great because they, you know, from the books and maybe from the series, I can't remember if they specifically talk about it, but the dragons have decreased in size over time. They talk about this, and they say at some point that like the last one that died was like the size of a house cat or something, like really tiny. You know. And so like it's good that they're respecting that. They're showing like this dragon was fucking massive, but the ones that like are active are still really big, full grown, scary ass dragons. That are animated really well.
No, I am very cautiously optimistic. At this point, we've only seen one episode, but I am eagerly awaiting 9 p.m. on Sunday. Like, I kind of respect the fact that they are doing it like old style, where they're releasing it at 9. And
that's how Game of Thrones used to release.
And it feels very much like an event. And so I looked it up right before it. The premiere had 9.986 views, million views, which is so close to 10, and it's the largest that HBO has ever had on a debut night.
Wow.
And so people are still interested, I guess. So I mean, we both watched it,
right? So. Turns out you cut Beavis and Butthead, and we're willing to give it a try, you know. Sorry, you took a drink right as I said that.
It was beautiful. Oh, fantastic. No, I was blown away and really excited for what's to come.
Please don't mess it up.
Please don't be bad. Please don't be bad.
Please don't make us say that
every time we mention that or Rings of Power, we do have to say, like, per our podcast contract, please do not mess it up. So.
Please don't fuck it up.
Oh man. Okay, let's talk about some games.
Let's talk games.
Okay, so I went to GenCon and it was insanely busy. I kind of explained it as it was so very busy, exciting, and just like fun. Like, it was completely different than any other Gen Con that I've been to, because over the last year I've really kind of made a lot more connections and like grown in kind of like friends that I have in that space, in the board game space. And so it was really cool to go to this convention that so many people were at, and it was just so busy because so many people were at it. And so it just felt like I was running event to event to event, which is incredible. Like, I'll talk about some of the games, but I do want to say I want to mention the highlight of Gen Con, and that was that on Sunday of Gen Con, the last day of Gen Con, I was able to preview the new X-Men expansion for Marvel Champions, which was a blast. So I played with, and this is like surreal to me, right? So I played with people who knew me, like who had seen my stuff, and like I had people come over and like introduce themselves to me because they knew who I was, and that was just
that's
weird.
really fun.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. But then after the event, I got to talk to Caleb Grace, who's the designer of Marvel Champions, and which was just surreal. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and
you're like fanboying out, I'm sure.
I absolutely was, and like I was like, hey, like I have like a YouTube channel dedicated to your game. And he goes, oh yeah, which one? I was like, the Living Card Game. He goes, oh yeah, I know that one. I was like, okay, well my life's complete. Cool. And so it was just it was incredible. It was so surreal. And I'm really excited for the X-Men that are coming out. But if you want to know more about that, there's a whole nother YouTube channel for that. So, I do want to highlight a couple of games that I got to try or demo or bring home. And do you want to hear about trick taking?
Oh man, I get to choose.
Yeah, you get to choose. Do you want to hear about trick taking? Do you want to hear about roll and rights, or do you want to hear about a unique card game first?
Ooh, I'll go unique card game. That sounds fun.
Unique card game. Okay, so I picked up Scout, by Oink Games, and Scout comes in a box that's about the size of, maybe like, like the iPhone or the iPod Nanos,
Yeah.
but like the ones with the screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's about that size, like it, or an iPod Mini. Like it's a tiny game.
Wow.
It may be a little bit bigger because like it has cards in it, but it's a game that has it's cards labeled 1 through 10, and they're double-sided. So on the top is a number, and on the bottom is a different number. And what you do is you deal out all the cards to every player, and you pick up your hand. At the beginning of the game, you have the opportunity to rotate your hand or flip it upside down or keep it the way you are. And after that, it's like Bonanza. You cannot modify or change the position of any of the cards in your hand.
Okay.
And it's like rummy or poker, where the first player will play a card, and then the next player has to play a card from adjoining spaces in their hand that beats their card. So if they lay down a 2, you can lay down a 3. Or if they lay down two 4s, you can lay down 2 5s. Mm-hmm. But you have to make sure that they are next to each other in your hand.
Okay.
If you cannot, then you scout, which is the name of the game, and you can take one of their cards and rotate it any direction and put it into your hand in any position. And then the next player has to beat what is left. And so if they lay down 2 5s, you cannot beat that. You take that. The next player then has to only beat a 5. And then you've set it up so that, oh, cool, now I have a 6, 7, 8 in my hand, and I can lay down that run.
Yeah.
And it was so much more fun than I expected it to be. And it was just like, it's fun to try and figure out that puzzle and try and, play things at the right moment so that it's like, okay, if I play these cards, then that sets me up for like a run of 4. And if you beat, this is actually probably important. Whatever you beat, you take those cards, and those are victory points. So like if you beat a run of 4, then you get 4 victory points, and that's really, really good. And if someone scouts from you, then you get a victory point.
Nice.
And then if you ever go out of cards, the round is over. And then every card in a player's hands at the end of a round is negative victory points. And then also if no one can beat your trick, the round is over. Okay. And so it creates some interesting decision points. And like, okay, like I've had times where it's like, okay, I want to lay these down. I'm not quite sure if anyone can beat it. And so I'm going to do that next time.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be left with these in my hand.
Gotcha.
And you play it out over like the number of rounds per player. And so like you can kind of set up, and if you have a bad round, then you can set up and try and make up for it later. But it fits in a pocket, and it's an absolute blast. Like I've played a lot of games like this, like Rummy Cube or anything like that, and it's like, why didn't I think of this? Like,
yeah,
what? It's like, this is so simple, and like, but so unique in the same like vein. And so it was just a lot of fun. So
for sure, it's cool that it's like inspired by like the kind of existing like card game setup. So like it's a little bit familiar, but like just enough of a twist to make it like a truly unique game experience.
Yeah. That was really cool. I'm going to do one more, and then we'll switch back to you because I need to rapid fire some of these. Okay, so are we doing roll and write or the trick taking?
Trick taking.
So Cat in the Box. Cat in the Box is a quantum trick taking game. And it was kind of, I think that this had a run for one of the games of the convention. It was probably up there with like Kites from Floodgate Games, which we're not going to cover in this podcast, and Twilight Inscription, which I want you to get so that we can cover at a future podcast.
Yeah. That's the Twilight Imperium roll and write, right?
Yes, that is. Yeah. Which I saw it played. It looks beautiful. You get like these orange highlighter markers, and it looks incredible.
Cool.
But so Cat in the Box by Bezier Games Bezier Games, not quite sure how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
But it is a game where...
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's a game.
It's a good start.
I think they brought 1,700 copies and they sold out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah, because it was $25. Like it was not expensive, and it's super unique because none of the cards are suited. And so it's a quantum trick taking game. It's kind of like the theme, and it's like, the Schrodinger's cat, like, is it dead or is it alive? Okay. You don't know until you actually play a card. So whenever you play a card, you declare it as a suit.
Okay.
And so there's a communal board that has the numbers. In a 4-player game, you play 1 through 9, and then the 4 suits. So like red, blue, yellow, green.
Okay.
Whenever you play a card, say I play a 6, all the cards are black. I play a 6, I can say this is a blue 6, and I put one of my markers out on the blue 6, and now no one can say that they have a blue 6 in their hand.
Oh,
because
neat.
it's already been played.
Yeah.
So if you have a 6, you have to say it's a red, green, or yellow.
Okay.
And there are 4 tricks and 5 of every card.
Okay.
So you'll be stuck with cards.
Okay.
So you go around, and whenever you say you play out of suit, so it's like, okay, I don't want to play a blue. Then you have a board that's, you basically take a token off saying, I have no more blues in my hand because you have to follow suit. And then you can play off suit at that point. Red is the trump card, and so it's like hearts, so you have to break trump before you can actually play trump. And so, but at that point, you're locked out. You can never play blues again. And if you can ever not play a card, then you cause a paradox, and all your victory points are basically negative.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And at the beginning of the round, you choose how many tricks you're going to win. This is where it gets insane to me. Like, I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And then, okay, at the beginning of the round, you choose how many tricks you're going to win. Every trick is a point, but if you also are accurate in your guess, then you then score bonus points based on the orthogonally adjacent of your markers on the board that you have mapped out.
What?
So you say I play a blue 6, a blue 7, and a yellow 7. You get 3 bonus points because those are all adjacent to each other.
Jeez. 3D chess
like,
over here.
Yeah. And so like Roberto sheer boredom was the one who was explaining it to me initially. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And he explained that. I was like, no, that's just going to hurt. That's just going to hurt. That's going to hurt my brain. But because they're bonus points, they do matter a lot. And I'm sure good players actually do plan for that. But for me, I'm just like, I just don't want to not be the one. I just want to be the one that doesn't cause the paradox. And so I'm going to try and get that. But if I don't, I don't. And that's fine.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, like you are kind of limited to what you can play. So there's really not a lot of AP too, which is really nice.
Nice. Yeah. So like if like a trick came around and like, let's say the 2 of blue was available and I had a 2 in my hand, I could still choose to say I'm out of blue if I wanted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you can do that if you want to trump in. And so like you can throw the 2 red and then that wins the trick because the red is the trump.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But then, yeah. And so it's like, it's kind of a risk reward. Like when do you want to say you're out of a trick and then trump in and take the trick? Right. Or you kind of want to offload cards and it's like, okay, there's only 1 5 left out there. I know I'm stuck with 1. I want to try and play that 5 before the other person plays the 5.
Gotcha.
Because I don't want to be the one stuck holding the bag because then the 5 can never be played and I just have a higher chance of causing a paradox.
Gotcha.
And it's been a lot of fun. I've played it with a couple of groups and it's just been a hit with every single group. It's been a lot of fun. The one complaint I have about it is it is the deluxe edition and the quality is crap.
Oh,
it is the little chits are really nice. The board is really nice. The cards, the back of the cards have different colors.
Oh no, that's
like it's just off printed. Yeah. And like because it's not suited, like there is like it probably doesn't matter, but it's also like, guys, like come on. Like it's the deluxe edition. And I
spent $25 on this.
Yeah. I've played my copy, I don't know, 4 times or so now.
Yeah.
And like all the cards are starting to show wear. It's like, so I sleeved them.
It's
and like
4 times.
All the, they're just very poor quality cards.
Yeah.
So
especially when your game is a card game, it feels like this is where your money should have gone.
Yes. Right. But anyways, it was really good. Cat in the Box was fantastic. I really enjoyed that box.
Very
I
cool.
really enjoyed that.
I like that name.
Yeah. It's like it's very much a paste it on theme, but it works really well.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, that's fun. Like that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was my bump set spike. Your turn, Diwali.
Very cool. I've been looking forward. I've been like trying to intentionally not ask you about Gen Con, so I appreciate you taking a minute.
Yeah.
Trying not to ruin it before the episode. Trying to stay true to the recording or whatever. So speaking of $20 card games.
Ooh, I'm so pumped.
I know, right? And segues. I picked up a $20 card game that I saw online. I just saw a post about it. Actually, like from the creator, called Ecologies.
I have never heard of this game.
Really, it's in the top 11,000 on Board Game
Oh
Geek,
shoot!
so-
No, I only do top 10.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's
Top
10,035. So you just missed it.
Yeah. Maybe if it gets a little bit better.
Yeah. And we're talking trash, but actually, like, it's like the 10th, like the thousands are just like the sevens in Board Game Geek. Like everything ends up being a 7, and so like it's
Right.
7.2,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's like a 500 or more way tie for 7.2.
Yep.
And so this is not at all a bad game when we say it's top 10,000. It just means it's in this very large mass of mediocre games.
Yep.
According to the community. But anyway, so this is a game.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. 2 for 2. This is a game designed by Matt Montrose. I think I've said his name right. The Matt I'm confident on. The last name I'm like 50-50, but
Okay.
Yeah. He also he's published it by himself. He's the artist for the game. So this is really like a self-produced game.
Cool.
Truly.
Nice.
And it's called Ecologies. The publisher, he named the company Montrose Biology. He's a biology teacher, and he designed this game to help kind of like highlight and teach aspects of ecologies in
That's
like a
cool.
biology sense. So,
That's really cool.
yeah, it's really neat. The way the game kind of works is you have like different tiers within an ecology. So you have like your producers, which are things that turn sunlight into carbohydrates.
Okay.
So like plants and but in the sea that would be like algae and stuff like that. And then you have like scavengers, which can exist within the ecology so long as there's like anything else in the ecology. And you have then like tiers of like consumers, not carnivores, but consumers. So things tier 1 can consume the producers, tier 2 can consume that, tier 3 can consume that.
Got it. Yeah.
Some animals can play multiple roles within like an ecology. So like this is where it covers like bears, like things that are herbivores that can both scavenge or consume plant life or consume other things,
Very cool.
And so the first thing you do is you play like a biome, and there's like 7 or 8 different biomes. And so this is part of the theming of the game that makes it fun. Like you have like desert biomes and tundra biomes and forest and, water, marine life, I think is what it's called in the game. So there's like some theming there that just ends up being really fun. There's like scientifically accurate plants and animals that have descriptions of like what they do within like their ecology, and sometimes they can exist within different biomes. And then there is a trade mechanic. So that's like a big part of the game is like what you have and what you're able to trade with amongst other players. So it's like I really need a producer for a tundra biome, right? Because I have like scavengers and like tier 1 and 2 consumers within, but I just need a producer to like get it all going, right? So you're like trying to like give away. And something I haven't mentioned is the higher up in the food chain something is, the more victory points it's worth. So sometimes you're trading things that are like really high tier because they're worth a lot of victory points, for things that are low tier just to kind of get you going or whatever.
Right. Okay. Seems like a very involved $20 card game.
Yeah, it's got a lot going for it. And I just really enjoy. We had a really fun first playthrough. There's a couple of action card type things that like come into play that just kind of shake things up. There is some like maybe messiness within the rule book, some things that weren't totally clear. There was one thing that happened that I like was trying to find FAQs of like, how does this, like what happens now? And like the rules around like scavengers, like maybe weren't totally clear to me. You can tell that like it is a game that has been produced by someone who knows biology, but may or may not actually know board game design.
Gotcha.
And so some things I think made sense in like the designer's head that maybe don't totally translate onto like the board for us clearly.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like adequately ranked in the like in these like mid-tier games. Like it's definitely well designed. It's really pretty. There are a ton of expansions for it. If you want to buy it, you go buy it off of his Etsy, because like
nice.
like
that's
he's
awesome.
making it himself basically. So
that's so cool.
And so there's a good feeling in there for us as consumers, and specifically people who like we kind of know how this space works. Like I feel like a lot of that purchase is actually going to him, which makes me feel good. Like for spending that $25 or whatever I bought it for.
Yeah.
And like I said, we've only played it once so far, but we just kind of had a blast with being a little silly with it. It maybe took about an hour. It maybe overstayed a little bit. It could probably be like a little bit shorter because I think you played like 12 victory points.
And that may be a first play.
And that may be a first play for sure.
Yeah.
One thing that was really funny was that so you play to like 12 victory points. Several cards are worth fractions of a victory point.
Just scale up.
Right.
Scale up.
It's like if you multiplied all the victory points by 4 and played to 40, it would be the exact same game, except I wouldn't have to do math as hard. But there's like
hilarious.
quarter of a point, 1.5 points, 0.75 points. It's like, come on, man.
Nice.
Do I have to?
And people like to score more points, so multiplying by 4 in any game is not bad.
It's not bad. Like it was, we were all kind of like having a laugh about it.
Nice.
Oh, and I think I also didn't mention like you can't. It's not just that like any tier 1 eats any scavenger producer, or that any tier 2 eats any tier 1. Like they all say on there, eats like. I'm looking at muskox right now, and it's like eats like lichen, saxifrage, and moths, and is eaten by Arctic wolf and polar bear. And so there's all this like interplay too of like what can eat what. So there's a little bit of a puzzle making, trying to like. And then when you actually make a functioning ecology, the biome itself has like a healthy ecology bonus. And so there's a little bit of like a engine building type feel of like, oh, okay, now like card purchases are cheaper by 2 because I have a functioning tundra bonus, or I draw more cards per
that's
turn,
cool.
or like, little stuff. I'm immune to certain, negative effects or.
Yeah. So what is kind of like the main mechanism? Is it like a deck builder? Is it a hand builder? Like what are you doing?
You're like basically you're drawing cards into your hand, and you have like an infinite hand size, and then you can play up to 2 cards per turn if you can play them, basically, if you have like a spot.
And then you have the trading.
Yeah, and then you have the trading.
Oh, okay.
And so there's like a draw. It's like 4 things, and it's like roughly like draw, trade, play, and then there's like a discard and buy type mechanic.
Cool. Okay.
So that's kind of the function of the game is.
Yeah.
But we did and I don't know if we were just doing this wrong, but we like had the whole deck dealt out at one point. Like everybody had like 16 cards, and it's like maybe we should be using like the whole like sell. Like you can like discard a certain number of cards to draw cards, and like maybe we should be doing that,
Yeah.
But at that point,
like everyone's just like pointing guns at each other. Like
that's right.
Who's gonna lay down first?
Yeah, that's right. Because when the deck is empty, you're like, well, I'm not going to lay down 4 cards so I can draw 1 card because they're all my cards. So it kind of stalled. That part of it stalled a little bit. Like I said, it's not like a totally critically acclaimed game, but I really appreciated what he was trying to do. He was trying to, show how ecologies work. He was trying to get his students interested in biology. And the couple that we played it with, they were really funny. They were telling us like, yeah, I was on a hike, and I was like noticing like little berries and stuff, and thinking about like what might be, like it was
that's
like
awesome.
It was totally obvious that it worked. Like he set out to accomplish was to teach fun biology through a board game, and like that is very functional.
Awesome. So I mean that's really cool. I think there's this whole like realm of educational games that we have not really touched on that much, but I do think that there is such a awesome opportunity because people like to learn when they're having fun, and especially kids. Yeah. And like I just think that is a genius way to teach, and so I'm really excited to hear that it actually functions fairly well too as a board game.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Like I also like. It feels like theme is really inherent in the game, and so that's just really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Nice. And I was really impressed with like the artwork. Like I said, he did it all himself, and there's a couple animals where because it's like they're all animals. Like that's hard to draw. Like proportions are weird and faces are weird, and there are 1 or 2 where it's like this animal is kind of eyeing me. Like it's kind of a weird look he's got.
Yeah.
Going.
Yeah. What level can eat me?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, are humans in the ecology? No, humans only destroy ecologies. But
yeah, which is why you're playing the game.
That's right. That's right.
It's very meta in that sense.
For sure. Like I said, there's a lot of content. I think there's like 7 or something expansions. So he's put out quite a bit of the game, considering that it came out in like 2019, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a lot of content. So are the expansions like different biomes, or how does that work?
As far as I can
like
tell,
more?
Yeah, just more. I mean, I haven't really read into it too much, but
cool.
The couple that I did look at, more.
Very cool. Yeah.
It was fun. It was fun. Surprising.
Yeah. It's always fun to hear about a game that's not headlining, right?
Right.
And so, nice. Yeah. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Did you buy it from Etsy?
I bought it from Etsy, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, direct from Etsy. So, like I said, that was also
so cool.
There's a little bit of reward for that. Of like, I'm probably willing to spend a little bit more, knowing that the money's going to him more directly.
Right.
Than to Asmodee
totally.
or whatever.
Alrighty, so the last thing that I had on my agenda tonight was the last game, which is okay. So choose from your options, which is Roll and Write.
I'll go with Roll and Write. I'm enjoying my choose your own adventure. By the way, this is very fun.
Yeah. So I'm glad you chose Roll and Write. Yeah. So this is actually one of the games that's not a new game. So Scout was new to US at Gen Con or around that time, and then Cat in the Box was new at Gen Con. This one has been around actually for a while now. It's Rolling Realms, which is from Stonemaier Games, designed by Jamie Stegmaier. Okay. Have you heard of Rolling Realms?
No, and I'm kind of surprised because I try to keep up without actually keeping up.
Yeah,
I try to keep up conversationally.
yeah. And so Rolling Realms it has such a cool theme. So basically, what it is you play out over 3 rounds. And every round you draw 3 cards, and every player at the table draws the same 3 cards. So you basically have one player draw 3, and whatever cards come out is what everyone is playing that round. Okay. But every single card is a different board game. So you have like the Scythe card, you have the Viticulture card, you have the Rolling Realms card, and then they've actually expanded it. So you have like the Terra Mystica card. So even games that are not under the Stonemaier, the umbrella, yeah. And he's partnered with a lot of companies to put out a lot of these cards for their types of games, and every single card kind of has a tie-in to the specific game. And so like the Viticulture card, you're like making wine, and the Between Two Cities cards, you cannot have adjoining numbers, and so it kind of pulls in some sort of mechanic, and each card plays a little bit differently. That all kind of like has an homage to its own game, and it's so much fun. And the rules are super simple. You roll 2 dice, and you use 1 dice in one realm and the other dice in a different realm, and you do that 9 times in a round, and you play over 3 rounds, and that's it. But the way that the cards interact, and depending on which ones come out, makes it just like very unique and very replayable.
Yeah, it's so meta too. I mean, there are other like meta games that are board games about board games or whatever, but this is the most direct one I think I've heard of.
Yeah,
like just literally printing the name and picture of the board game or whatever like on cards, and that's what you play with.
Yep, there is a Rolling Realms card in Rolling Realms. But the game has become self-aware at this point.
Yeah.
But this is another one. It's in a box that's bigger than it needs to be. But you could condense it and take it in a backpack, and like it's a really solid. It's a really solid roll and write for how simple the rule sets are.
Yeah.
And I have found that I've enjoyed roll and writes, and that's just a genre that I typically like, and I picked it up along with. So when I was at, Stonemaier was not at Gen Con, but they were represented by another company there. And so when I bought the game, I also picked up Viticulture World, which is a game I will talk about in a future podcast.
Okay.
But it's the expansion of Viticulture that makes it cooperative.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
And so I bought that, and then it came in like a box that houses everything.
Yeah.
And so it's like this nice, cool, like wine crate looking box.
Oh, sweet.
And
yeah.
So I'm excited to talk about that, but that will be a future copy because one of our listeners has my copy of Viticulture right now. So, so I'm hoping to get that back soon.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you, like, I feel like when I play roll and writes, I feel like I'm solving a puzzle.
Yeah.
Like probably more literally than other games that I play, right?
Yes.
And in the same vein, like I really enjoy solving puzzles. Like it's something that my fiance and I do in like our downtime. But I don't generally feel that I'm playing like that. I enjoy one puzzle more than other puzzles, and I personally feel that way about like roll and write. So I'm interested to hear like how does this compare to like other roll and writes, I guess, that you played? Like, is it kind of checking the same boxes, or is it like different enough to offer its own like, you know, it's enjoyment. It doesn't stand alone, I guess.
No, I totally see where you're coming from. And yeah, I do agree. It does feel very similar in kind of solving that type of puzzle. I think there are genres of roll and writes that kind of can stand on their own, right? I don't think that if you have cartographers, you would not be interested in Welcome To. I think those play very, very differently. But I do think that this plays pretty similarly to a lot of the number roll and writes, where you're trying to optimize where you're placing dice. So it feels like a That's Pretty Clever or a Welcome To, that kind of sense. The one thing that I would say is that it is a little bit more dynamic because everything is always different and what cards are coming out. And so you're not going to play the same map like you would on Welcome to, or
Okay.
that's pretty clever.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's a little more dynamic. If you're not a huge fan of roll and rights, or if you're not a big fan of roll and rights, then if you have one, I don't necessarily know if you need to pick this one up.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy roll and rights. I enjoy just consuming a lot of different types of games, and so I was very happy to pick this up. But I can see if you are kind of limited in what games you want on your shelf, if you have another roll and write that kind of fits that genre, then maybe this one's a pass.
Yeah.
It doesn't offer anything that's super unique that is I have to have this. But like when what you were saying with like that's what you were saying with like roll and writes feel very similar. I think that is very true, but also like there's a spectrum. Like Twilight Inscription is going to be a lot different than Welcome to.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, but this one feels very much like lumped. If you kind of like cross your eyes a little bit, it would all be the same.
Yeah, and part of that's just like if in 2009 or 2010, I could probably have made the same argument for like deck builders, right?
Yeah,
Like there wasn't a ton of variety because it was just like kind of new, and I feel like roll and rights both are and are not new, you know. Because like
Yahtzee.
Yeah, exactly. Because in some senses, Yahtzee's a rolling right, and so like it's been around forever.
Yeah.
But also, it just feels like there's a lot of room still to explore and expand
Yes.
into mechanics that can be associated with rolling rights.
Yep.
So it may just be like a right now thing, and 5 years from now, I could feel totally differently. But
Yep. The one last thing that I will say is that if you are looking for something with a roll and write with player interaction, this is not your game. It's very much a heads down type game. Whereas like Cartographers, you do have a little bit of interaction there, but this feels very much like a Welcome to, where it's you can play it over a podcast basically, right? So there's no interaction whatsoever. So
yeah,
that I have seen at least.
Yeah.
So
Welcome to can be played with an infinite number of players, right?
Yep. And so can this game as long as you have enough decks.
Yeah.
Enough sets of the cards.
Gotcha.
So I really liked kind of the theme of the game, and then also I've played it a couple of times now, and I really enjoy just kind of the gameplay of it. It's a very like chill game, but the interactions of what cards come out can drastically change how you play the game.
Yeah.
Cool. You got anything else?
I do. I have one more thing.
Let's go. Let's do
one
it.
last book topic. Switching
nice.
back. So I read through, I think it's titled the Inheritance Trilogy. And actually, I take that back. I did not read through the full trilogy. What's that?
Not the cycle.
Not the cycle. It's different. It's different. So I read through 100,000 Kingdoms, which is the first book in it.
It's a lot of kingdoms.
It's a whole lot of kingdoms. I read this book while painting, and so I hated it at first because I was painting. But then I realized I did actually very much like the book. I just didn't.
What were you painting? I'm sorry.
The house.
Oh, okay.
Like the inside of my house.
Like I just like picture you doing like a wine and paint like canvas. I'm just like, what are you?
Paint by
And then like
numbers.
you're like holding a book like up above your head and like painting and just like very like aristocrat of you. I'm like, what are you?
I
like,
would have liked that
you had-
significantly more than what I was
That's fair.
doing.
Okay.
No.
My mind did not go to the house whatsoever. Sorry.
Yeah, so my
Please
house
continue.
was painted. It's fine. It's Fireside episode. So what my house is painted what they used to call sellable yellow, right? Which was like in the 90s, like late 90s or whatever, just in the 90s in general, they just painted houses yellow because it was considered like a sellable color. And so my house is that color, and it's hideous. And so we were painting it white because that's what you do now, I guess. And so, but I like my like first floor has like a vaulted ceiling, so I had like one of those paint like poles that's like, it's like a 10-foot pole, and it's got like an 18-inch roller on the end of it. And so I was like trying to like paint the ceiling, like my back hurt. And anyways, this is like none of your problem at all. But I was just grumpy in general because painting makes me grumpy.
That's fair. That's fair.
But this book was like, it got me through it, man. I really liked it. And it was one that I found in like a list of recommendations, and it sounded interesting. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I found the first book in an airport. I remember that now.
Oh,
I like picked it up and I read the back of it because it said Inheritance on it, and I was like, "Is this?"
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Oh no, this is a different thing." But I read the back of it and I was like, "Well, that sounds interesting," and so I just added it to like my list on my phone.
Nice.
And so it was really bite sized. It was, I think, a 12-hour book. It was pretty small.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it had very, maybe you would say like narrow or like streamlined world building.
Okay.
Where it wasn't in depth. It wasn't all these new creatures and nations. And you weren't learning about all these things. You knew that all of this large world existed because it's like.
Well, you had to do 100,000 of them.
I know,
so.
right? That would take a very long time. Can you imagine? Even a 100,000 page book would be just unbearable.
Right.
And yeah, nobody get any ideas, but
Yeah. Sanderson looking at you.
that's right. Right, back off. Anyways, and so the concept of it, though, the concept was that there are three entities. The first is one of, you might say, like order and like stasis. And the second, that is sort of like change and chaos. And so they obviously kind of balance each other. And they were kind of the first gods. And so through them, like the world started to kind of be created. And then there is a third god that came later, that is sort of a hybrid of the two. And so the first one that I described of like stasis and order is the god of like the day, like the god of the sun and of the day. The second one of change is the god of night and of the moon. And the third one is of like dawn and twilight.
Oh, cool.
Kind of like thematically.
That's fun.
And the third one is the one that was able to bring in life, because it's kind of a combination of both order and chaos, if that makes sense. So thematically already like really cool.
Yeah.
But dun dun dun, what has happened, and they talk about this very early, is that the god of order and chaos has killed one of the gods and imprisoned the other, and sort of like taken over. Like they're out of balance, basically.
Gotcha.
But the whole world's religion has been, or the whole world has been at peace. Like they talk about the 100,000 kingdoms. They are all united and at peace because he is the god of like preservation and law and order, right? So there's at the start of the book, you describe this world that is kind of achieved world peace, basically. But as you like the book progresses, you realize like maybe that's not exactly true, right? And so it's really cool, like the way that it's structured. Basically, like the main character goes to kind of like the ruling city, and starts to kind of like uncover basically the ugliness behind the truth a little bit.
Okay.
The god that is imprisoned is actually imprisoned in like a human form, and so is an active character in the book, which is also
that's
kind of cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of cool things about. Also, we haven't even talked about, but those three gods, it's actually a pantheon. Those are like the three main gods, but there is a pantheon of children gods and other things. So there's all these other deities that are also active characters within the books. And so for a 12-hour book, a ton of depth in like characters and it's basically a book of intrigue. I guess it is technically a fantasy setting, but it doesn't maybe feel like it's definitely not high fantasy because it's only humans and gods. So there's not orcs and goblins and elves or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's also not high fantasy in terms of like length. It's pretty short. But it's basically like it's almost a mystery book. The main character is trying to solve a personal mystery, basically a murder mystery that has to do with their family. And they have gone to the main capital to like try and, as among other things, one of the things they're trying to do is solve that mystery.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah. So a really unique really setting. Cool. Like I said, I would. To call it narrow, I think would do it a disservice. I would say maybe like streamlined is a better word. Like it is intentional in that it's not trying to build all of the 100,000 kingdoms. That's just like a backdrop. It's not trying to describe every god in the pantheon to you. You just know that they exist. But the gods that are in the story are like really well developed characters, and they're very unique, and they have a thing, like they have some characteristic that like makes them very like at times lovable, or like just gives them characterization, right? Like, they behave this way like for these different reasons. Like that makes sense to me.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So, why is it called like, or why 100,000 or
why
100,000 kingdoms?
Yeah, 100,000 kingdoms. I think is just named because there are like 100,000 kingdoms in the world or something like that. But they're all united under this one like government.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And I don't, they reference that term. I don't know that it's like literal term, and it may just be like superfluous. That. They're like, there's just a lot of kingdoms or whatever. Okay. So they just kind of like reference it that way. But it's more like I said, it's like superfluous and meant to point to the fact that there are a lot of kingdoms that are ruled by like one governance, and that there is world peace, quote unquote, amongst all these kingdoms.
Gotcha.
I don't know why she chose like inheritance, but I don't know. It's a cool word.
Maybe that's in the next couple books.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, that sounds really cool. Yeah, that sounds like a really like interesting and like captivating, both like setting, but also the murder mystery, or like the mystery seems like kind of really intriguing to me.
Yeah, it was very fun. So. Like I said, very bite-sized. The first book did kind of stand alone, so I will probably go back and read the second and third one, but it was a complete story, and so I don't need to. It was very rewarding for what it was.
Cool.
But she kind of earned my trust, I guess, in that it was well written, and I really enjoyed it. So
yeah, no, that sounds really interesting. I'll put that one on the maybe list. How about that?
Yeah,
because I feel like if I say I keep putting things on the list, nothing's ever going to get off the list.
I know you have a lot on your list, man.
I know it's bad, but I did read a full book by myself, so
good job.
There is hope.
There's hope.
There
for
is
you
hope.
Yet.
Yep.
Oh man, is that enough content for you yet?
That was a lot of content. I have even more to talk about, but we'll save that for a future episode.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was awesome coming back from summer break. Feels like school's back in session. We're doing podcasts again, so that's really exciting.
Yep.
And yeah, so I mean, this was an absolute blast. I always enjoy talking with you. We were kind of talking. It's like we haven't talked in a long time either.
I know.
It's been really busy, but yeah. But if you want to reach out and communicate with us, you can on any of the social medias or the Discord. You can find all of those links on the Fantasy and Some Flights website, so you can go there and see what we're all about.
Yep.
But thanks for listening, and we will be back next time with another episode. I almost talked about what it was, but I don't actually know what it is. So
we'll be back with whatever comes up.
More
Maybe another
content.
Fireside episode where we cover the
More
other half of
content.
content that we haven't covered yet.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, it's fantastic talking with you,
Always.
and I look forward to the next
Till
one.
next
Cheers,
time.
buddy.
Cheers.